the immediate light bulb that went on. But I had a great team with me, so to me it's a we thing. It was not just me. I think other of them would probably say, oh yeah, well this is your thing, and I'm like, but it's not, because it, like, I could not have done it without the group of people that I had helping, and I had a great group. And a special acknowledgement to Samantha. She's over here. She's my project manager, and she's more my business and numbers, because I do a lot of girl math. And so it's all about a discount and shopping for me. So that's the only time I can do math. So I can purchase really well, and I can get a deal really well. But like that whole, oh, you're over budget, I'm like, I'm not gonna put her somewhere. So she keeps me on track. So this is an actual program. I don't know if our agenda really kind of clarified that. So this is an actual program that is currently running. So it was reaching your APEX, and the APEX stands for Arthritis, Physical Activity, Education, to reach whatever it is that you're wanting to do in life, right? My name is Alexis Holt, and I'll be sharing with you kind of how everything has been going and how this came about. But I have a question for you first. A couple questions, actually. So how many of you know someone who has arthritis? How many of you have arthritis? Yeah. So we're all affected in some way, shape, or form, right? Now I want you to think about the person you know that has arthritis. Have you seen, as they have had arthritis and it's progressed, have you seen a change in your relationship? Most of the time, yes, because they start to avoid things, they might experience pain, and oftentimes they don't want to be a burden. Now think about yourself having arthritis. Have you changed behaviors having arthritis? Maybe yes, maybe no. And I'm going to guess your no. Worked really hard for it to not affect things. Okay, yeah. So, but what do we feel? We tend to feel those who have been affected. You don't want to be a burden. You're in pain. You can't do all the things you used to be able to do, right? So we tend to play this avoidance game as well, and we kind of box ourselves in and go, oh, I have arthritis, I'm going to go anywhere, so I can't do it, right? And that's not how I feel. I don't believe in that in any way, shape, or form. Life might look a little different, but that does not mean that it like ends. It doesn't mean that you just stay shut in or sitting down the rest of your life, right? So today I'm going to give you a little introduction, give you a background about not only arthritis, but like why we went for a grant. And the background of that first is just kind of starting the program in your facility. The program concept, our progress and outcomes so far, and then the next steps for the program. And then you're welcome to ask me questions. So, like I said, my name is Alexis Holt. So the only thing that allows me to even talk about this, other than the fact that I came up with the idea, is I am the group exercise and recreation coordinator for Cleveland Clinic Active General, one of our wellness centers. We have 3. So I'm out of our Stowe location. We're close to Cleveland. And Akron, if you know LeBron James, I'm not very far from where he grew up. So I'm a PhD student at Kent State University. I've taught at the University of Akron, just now taking a hiatus. And I've worked on 3 grants, not including this one. I've done a tennis grant, USTD serves, a childhood wellness grant overall, so looking at nutrition and education, exercise and education to prevent type 2 diabetes, and FABU, which is finding a better you, and that was with older adults. So same concept of health, exercise, and education, but with older adults. And I've started to pivot my private business to more wellness and grant program consultation and programming consultation. So enough about me, but really what I want to highlight is my team, because again, I couldn't have done any of this without a team. So Samantha Trabarca has been my project manager. We have an exercise specialist and educator, Ben Kuharic, who's been wonderful. And it's been great to see him grow as a professional too, which has been really cool. Our exercise specialists at our facility have done the pre and post testing for us. They've gotten to assist and use a lot more of their background. Because if you are familiar with a wellness center, sometimes a lot of your exercise science stuff is also your exercise specialists are cleaning equipment, putting things away, they're greeters, then they sometimes get to use a lot of that scientific brain of things. Our exercise professionals, we have them teaching both land and water classes. And then we also were very lucky to have guest speakers. So throughout the Cleveland Clinic, we reached out and we were able to get some support and have some speakers come and talk with our participants, which is great. So if you know me, and all to know me is to also know that I'm a crazy cat lady. So here's a little bit of the background. Hopefully I don't be yawning like the cats do when I go over this stuff with them, because it's important and they should even know it. It's friends too. So arthritis will continue to increase, has increased within our population as it grows and it ages. So you can see in this what's been diagnosed from 2000 to 2015, and then what is projected from 2015 to 2040, right? It's only going to continue to grow up. And what's really interesting with the research is that there was a big push in research 2015 to 2017, and then it just kind of became stagnant. There's always little pockets of arthritis, but they basically determined, okay, we can clearly see this is not going anywhere, so we don't need to keep studying how long the projection's going. Now it's gotten in smaller pockets of things. So in the US, and this is a 2015 stat, so again, keep that in mind. So 24% of adults, or 58.5 million people, had arthritis in the US. Okay, that's in 2015. So just imagine where we are now, right? It's the leading cause of work disability. It's an annual cost of medical care and a lost earning of $303 billion. Yeah, and arthritis is really common with additional comorbidities, which I want to point that out to you because you're going to hear a testimonial from one of our participants. That was actually really cool and kind of hits on that topic. But 47% of people who have arthritis also have diabetes, and 49% of people who have arthritis also have heart disease. Right? So they coincide. What do we know helps both of those? Physical activity, education, nutrition, right? So 1 in 4 people have arthritis, and you all answered that question earlier. Everybody either knows someone or has had arthritis, right? So we proved that stat. 1 in 4 people experience pain with arthritis. 1 in 10 people experience lack of activity and loss of mobility from arthritis. And then clearly we see that there's a high annual cost for medical care and lost earnings as well. So why grant? So I had a really good idea. I knew it was evidence-based, right? I was able to find that problem. Healthy People 2030 was like my best one because that's where I found a lot of things that potentially we were working towards, and we hopefully in 2030 have found some way to combat this. So it's an evidence-based need, but I need the money to carry it out. Being in a large conglomerate, there's not always the money sitting around for you to do some wellness, right? So I had to figure out how I was going to pay for it. I was really interested in it, wanted to do it, how am I paying for it? Within an organization that I'm in, being attached to the Cleveland Clinic, I should be able to obtain information about potential sources for support for new research development, right? Should be able to. Big old conglomerate, so there's got to be lots of money there. People hear the Cleveland Clinic, at least in Ohio, and they're like, oh, okay, God, they have tons of money. Cleveland Clinic is nonprofit, so that was a benefit to me. And I also looked at both the vision and mission statement of the Cleveland Clinic and African lifestyles. So that way, when I was creating the program, I could tie not only the mission back in for both of those to find funding, but also then when I was looking for funders, the mission of the grant, right? And what their mission is. So taking those missions and kind of connecting them helps you really find that connecting thread as well. And then what's the best way to convince a funding source that you need support? A professional training idea? Write a grant. Write a program, find the funding, prove you're right, and it makes it a lot easier to find the support down the road, right? Okay, so program concept, again, I kind of come from academia, so I think of things with a hypothesis, which is basically a research question, is what I'm creating. Usually when we create programs, we want an outcome, right? We have objectives and it's outcome-based. So creating a hypothesis, basically that, saying that my intervention that I create is going to improve or decrease X, Y, and Z, right? That's what a hypothesis is. So I hypothesize that participants would show an increase in their knowledge, attitudes, skills, and self-efficacy when managing their arthritis after participating in our program. So it's a 14-week commitment. There is one education session a week and 2 exercise sessions a week. And we actually strategically did that for a reason, because first of all, 14 weeks, people are going to see it. They're either in it because they're like, I really want to find a solution, and they're going to try to find ways around through life, right? It's not a short commitment. We knew it needed to be long enough to have some data and actually have some outcomes too, because we really wanted to focus on the education piece. So we had one education session a week, and that was because we didn't want to give them too much information all at once. We wanted to make sure they could absorb it, take it home with them, and then be open to asking questions the next time we saw them. And then 2 exercise sessions a week. Our sessions at our facility are 45 minutes. So we added a couple special ones to specifically focus on arthritis, but then we encourage them to be able to access our entire facility, which had also all of our group exercise classes. They're all 45 minutes. So here's the cool thing. If you take ACSM standards, 150 minutes of physical activity leads to health, right? They're getting 2 classes in, so all they needed is 1 more activity sometime throughout their week, right? So that was really cool because they were committed and they were following it because they wanted to support us. They wanted to have results. Program content. Our program focused on knowledge, skills, attitude, and self-efficacy, and physical movement. So we use land and water to assist with that, because if you've ever experienced arthritis, especially pain with arthritis, it can be extremely debilitating. We focus on the pain, right? So we focus on the pain, and then we don't want to be in pain. So we either try to avoid things that cause the pain, or at least seems to make the pain worse, right? Which usually equates movement. So the beautiful thing about water, if you've never tried a water class, I highly recommend you try it, because that buoyancy changes it, so it feels like you're not putting any pressure. You're not. So they feel like a whole new person in the water. But what ends up happening, especially for people who have arthritis, they get really attached to the water, because that's where they feel good, right? And that's their safe space. And they stop doing other things that they potentially do because they've boxed themselves in. I can't do that. Experience pain. I won't be able to do that. Love water, so I'll keep doing that. I will do that all day long, but I will not try something new because I'm too scared. So we wanted to focus on those key points, right? Both in teaching them how to move and also educating them on not only how pain feels, so what's safe pain and what's not safe pain. Really important, because a lot of times we don't listen to our bodies, right? When's the last time someone kind of felt like they had a pulled muscle, but they just kept going, right? A lot of times, right? We do it a lot. Yeah, hurts, right? And what happens? It tends to become an overuse injury because we just didn't do what we needed to do to take care of it at the moment. So we wanted to make sure they actually understood what was going on with their bodies. So our target audience, well, arthritis affects everyone. I'm 36, I have arthritis in my hips. Early onset, we found it when I was in my mid-20s, and they basically are like, nothing you can do. Cool. thanks for that. And did physical therapy, did all the things. I teach Pilates, I teach group exercise for a living, and I was like, all the things I'm doing in PT, I do every single day already for my job, right? So great, but it wasn't a wonderful fit for me because there are already things I was doing. Those were already my maintenance spaces, right? So I had to really look for other opportunities to manage what I was experiencing. So ages 18 to 80. Reason we didn't go any younger than 18 is when you're working in a grant, there's some different things when you're doing working with people, doing clinical trials. Children tend to be just a harder market to hit. And there's early youth arthritis, which is a very different world. So we really looked at like adults, right? 18 to 80, could be past 80, but generally anyone 80 or above, kind of lightly outliers to a degree. Living with arthritis and experiencing pain or difficulty in their activities of daily living from arthritis, right? So nice and broad, right? They ideally had a diagnosis for arthritis, but that wasn't a deal breaker. We actually made our consent form to say, I do have a diagnosis and I'm willing to share it. I do have a diagnosis and not willing to share something from my doctor. Or I don't know for sure I have a diagnosis, but I'm pretty sure I do. So I'd like to participate in this. And that was really nice because you also get to see their mindset of where they're at. And it was open to our members at our wellness center, but also to the community and our employees. We really wanted to make sure that because we're attached to the hospital, employees are patients too, right? And that affects their work, their behaviors, their ability to be productive. So we wanted to make sure that it's benefiting all the worlds that we could possibly touch. And then education. So we focused on goal setting and knowledge mostly. So teaching what is arthritis, discussing the importance of physical activity when you have arthritis, what affects arthritis, like our weather, mobility, nutrition, all those different things can have an effect on everyone's different types of arthritis. And what physical activity is also best for our, right? Were we going to necessarily go tell them all to go run? No, right? We modified it and made it less scary because it doesn't have to be just this, right? You make it tailored to what fits for them. And what's really interesting is there's over 1,000 different types of arthritis. So one of the things we specifically did is most people hear about rheumatoid arthritis, right? One of the most common, and also osteoarthritis, right? But there's key factors between all the different types of arthritis that run very similar symptoms. So we know it's generally always an inflammation issue, right? And we know it always causes pain. So as opposed to boxing people in and saying, well, you have to have treatment for rheumatoid arthritis, you have to have treatment and education for osteoarthritis, right? Well, we can actually educate based on the symptoms that we know most of them experience. Yes, are there specialty things that they may need to look into? Absolutely. But it doesn't have to be boxed in where you then just feel like there's not enough. So our study has been using mixed methods. Mixed methods, if you're not familiar with them, you're using both quantitative and qualitative data. So I gave you just some examples. So basically numbers and feelings, opinions, surveys, and people's experiences, right? So my experience teaching it and running it has been different from Samantha's, right? So if we just wrote down our experiences from running it and teaching it, that's qualitative. It's the phenomenon of us both working on the same thing, but we had different experiences, right? Quantitative are your numbers. So we know numbers drive money, support, data, right? They're important. You are attached to the hospital, you know that those metrics are always important. So I always encourage including them because that's just what talks to most people, right? So we pre and post testing. We collected the time of the go test for mobility. We use goniometer for range of motion. So that's one of the big things: mobility, range of motion, loss of range of motion. And then we use it's already used, created, so it's certified. The AIMS, so it's an arthritis impact measurement scale. Now we did make it a little bit smaller because there were some questions we felt were just repetitive. And because we were making sure that we're including education, just some of the questions didn't feel as valid. Like, why are we asking the same question 4 times in different ways? So we shortened it a little bit, but it's a disease-specific measurement for physical, social, and emotional well-being. So they had questions based off of how are you physically affected by it, right? What are you physically experiencing? What do you socially experience? Do you go out less? Do you do things less? Do you have to use your phone because you just don't want to deal with getting the invitation for things? And emotional. Are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling sad? Frustrated, angry? So all of those different things, because it's your total wealth, right? It's the entire puzzle. If I'm financially not able to work as much because I've been in pain, probably experiencing a lot of mental and emotional stuff. And it's probably affecting my social life as well, right? And then our qualitative is anything self-reported. So feelings of their program success, feelings of their advocacy, behavior changes they've made, and they all self-report it. So we've collected attendance, we've had them keep their own attendance, we've had them write down their behaviors outside and self-report. And then at the very end of the program, we're actually going to do interviews so we can get directly from them, like what worked, what didn't work, what they liked, what they didn't like, and really hear from them, because it's still very patient at the end of the day. Okay, so what we've seen so far. Go ahead, am I talking really fast?
No.
Okay, cool. It's going faster than another one.
Questions?
Yes. So progress and outcomes. So I felt like it was most important to share with you some of the pivots we've had to make, because if you've ever created any type of program, you have to adjust as you go. Right? There's going to be some barriers that come up in your way, and you right? We all experienced that with COVID. That was a nice big pivot for a lot of people. We also have had wonderful successes, so it's always important to share, right? We don't always want to focus on the negative things. And then barriers. I find barriers is just really interesting challenges for me of how to get around. I hear every no as a maybe. So, so I just really like a challenge. So a barrier, I'm like, bring them on. So pivots. So we had to broaden our population as much as possible and be flexible with opportunities we had. So we just actually started, I shortened the program and we started going to a somewhat lower income, older adult housing community. The issue with them is a lot of them, there's not a lot of parking there, so those who can drive don't want to leave because they'll lose their parking spot. It's really interesting. Those who can't drive, they have no transportation, right? So to get them to us is not necessarily feasible. They can take the bus and they can actually take it free, but now that's a whole new thing. I gotta get up, I gotta be on a schedule, I've gotta move, I've gotta be motivated to go and do. So I took the opportunity, they said they were open for us to come, and I jumped on the opportunity and figured, how do I adjust our program just enough that I can still get the data and, you know, do what we're saying we're gonna do, but also be able to bring it to people. And so I go once a week. I'm hoping to get at least one more exercise class over there, and we shortened it just for the next 2 months. So it won't be as expensive. We'll shorten it, got the speakers, but they'll still get all the education. They get to exercise right with it. So they actually eat lunch in the room that we teach it. So I start to talk and teach while people are sitting there eating. So some people are even getting that additional information, even though I haven't signed up, because maybe the next day they'll sign up. So I've also done open enrollment, and that's different from what we did for the other one. And then we exercise together. They really like it. It's very fun. So we've adjusted the schedule and our time commitment. 2 things. We started out with asking people to come to education twice a week for 30 minutes. So it was small snippets. wasn't overwhelming in your schedule. But what we started to realize is, as opposed to asking people to try to come 4 days a week, why not just make it a little bit longer and come once a week for education? So that was important because it just took into consideration everything else they're doing. Because at that point, they've committed to us and they start to put stress and pressure on themselves to get there for us. And then they feel really guilty when they can't. And I can't tell you how many people have asked me, well, I didn't make it to the session, so I just quit. Should I just stop? I don't want to screw up your study. No, no. So we ended up adding a virtual component. So we Zoom. So all of our live education, we Zoom. So people could get on live at that time and hear that same lecture. So let's say I'm sick and I'm in bed and wasn't going to come, but I can lay in bed and listen, right? So they can still get the education. At the end of the program, we put it all on YouTube. So all of our participants get a workbook. After participating in it, they get to keep. So they've got all their notes, everything that they've taken, all of our education. But then if they're looking through something one day and they're like, what was that one thing they said about goal setting? I can't quite remember, and I don't really understand my notes. They can actually go back to that lecture anytime and re-listen to it. And I think that's a huge tool because it's that continuing education then. So they have that opportunity. They're already comfortable with the information and they have that opportunity to go back to. Building relationships, and this is the biggest key, continue to foster them. Just because I meet you once does not mean I'm going to be significant and living rent-free in your mind, right? If I want to live rent-free in your head, I got to make sure you haven't forgotten, right? So I've got to make sure that I'm doing what I have to do to foster that relationship. I really, truly believe that from the medical fitness standpoint, we almost have to be like healthy, possessive drug reps. What did drug reps do? They went, they made relationships, they brought goodies, they got you coffee, and they really hounded the stuff. Now, we're bringing that, but without any pills, right? But it's that relationship. What do they do really well, that relationship? We know people love stuff. We know people like to feel important, right? So we can take the same concept, but bring it to like wellness and being healthy. Here's a strategy on just how to help your patients be healthier. And how are you doing? What have you been? What do you think? Because if you can get them to attach something personal for them, they're gonna remember. They're gonna be willing to talk about it, right? And then that virtual connectivity, like I said, it's just a big game changer. It's a great opportunity. I think a hybrid method is great. I don't like to go fully remote personally because I think it's nice for people to have a personal touch. At least having it as an option. Because if it's an option, they may take it, right? So success. We actually got $51,000 for this grant. So it started with MFA, actually got their $10,000 scholarship. So we were awarded that last year through the Cleveland Clinic after doing some research. And so this is something for all of you, if you're attached to a hospital at all, go back and research this and look at this if they have a foundation. There are grants through our hospital that any caregiver can apply. We had no idea, right? I just happened to stumble upon it because I was trying to figure out how to get more money. And their goals were just innovation. So they want to support ideas that caregivers have, create innovation, patient improvement, those things. And I went, oh, this is that. And no one in our division had ever written a grant and tried it. And luckily I've worked on grants and I've written them, so I was like, I'll try it. And let's see what happens. We were able to get it. So that was awesome because, again, a bigger pot of money allows us to reach more people, also allows us to do some things and purchase some things that we wouldn't have been able to. We would have get real scrappy and creative using the 10 grand. It would have been great. We would have been fine with it. But much scrappier, might have had to adjust how much time we could put in it. But our pot could pay our staff reasonably. We were able to let them get in on creating some of the lesson plans and stuff too. So that lets them use their creativity and paying them for that time to respecting that relationship. We reached our participant goal. So between both phases we've done and then adding this other one, we actually have reached how many people we said we would touch, which was 50. We still are receiving interest. People are still coming across our flyer. Docs are potentially still talking about our program because obviously they're not necessarily aware of the timeline and that we are going to run out of money in December and then we have to pivot, right? But I still get probably a call every other week or a note in my mailbox every other week about someone hearing about a arthritis program and wanting this. So it's still a desire, right? People want to know about it and want to participate. Participant buy-in is huge, and I am blown away by our participants. They make it so much easier to get through the red tape when you're dealing with a bigger conglomerate because they want to be there. I can't tell you how many text messages, calls, emails I've gotten. I couldn't get to an exercise class this week, but I did do this, this, and this. And I go, that's physical activity, that counts. Because what are we doing? You're changing your behavior. You're motivated to change your behavior. I'm not going to scold you for going on a walk with Fred. I'm going to celebrate that. Okay? No problem you didn't get here to a yoga class. No big deal. You move. That's all I was looking for, right? I was able to get to 2 water classes. I was really excited that I didn't make it to only a class. You did 2 water classes. I'm stoked. I'm happy about it, right? They just are so excited to do it, right? And then progress in our network and buy-in from our organization. After our first phase, I kept reaching out, kept talking to, and kept searching for supervisors and those higher up in different departments that then had the trickle down effect. And I'd get our opportunity to them and I'd say, this is a grant, this is how it's funded. And I'd really love to have one of your doctors, one of your physical therapists come and talk to our patients. It's a great opportunity for them to network because now someone has a face and a name. So if I'm looking for physical therapy, I'm going to be tempted to reach out to you instead of cold calling or trying to find someone using Google, right? If I know someone, I'm more comfortable. If I get a referral, I'm more comfortable, right? So creating those relationships, and that gave us an opportunity to figure out what else other places are doing and how we can get involved, what we can bring to the table to support them and assist them. That potentially gives us more programming ideas. So barriers. Time commitment for participants. Did have 3 people drop out of the entire program, more because of time commitment. Someone, family member got sick. They just realized that it was more than they could really keep up and they didn't want to throw things off. No matter how much I said, you're not going to throw things up, it's okay. And I got a couple like, oh, you know what, we've got a really busy schedule, but I want to do it the next time. Oh, we're doing it the next time. Okay, I'll keep that. I'll contact you. Pounding the pavement, getting buy-in. And like I said, I hear every no is amazing. So I will just keep driving you crazy until you finally are like, I can't hear you talk about this anymore, so fine, go just do it. We're trying, you know, and I'm like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. So just believe in what you're talking about. You know, if you've done the work, you've done the research, you've plugged all the holes, you know it. You're the expert, you're prepared. You just have to believe in it then, right? Staffing and balancing your actual job. My job is not to find grants and create programs and run them at all. I oversee group exercise and recreation. So that is what I'm expected to do. And I was like, I really enjoy doing this. So I'm just going to figure out if I can. Because we heard one of the speakers earlier in the week say, if you're not enjoying it, then it's just work. And my goal is to always enjoy what I'm doing. It makes it a lot easier to deal with the stuff that I don't enjoy because I love going to work. I really do. there are times, Dan knows, that I say, I don't want any of our employees to talk to me because they all trust me quickly. But I can't wait to see my clients, my patients. I'm just, that I'm over the moon for. I will show up for that all day long. So if I have to put up with someone asking me what I consider a dumb question because I know that they can open a book and find it, I will deal with it. I will suck it up, I won't be mean, and I will handle it. Because I'm really looking forward to that interaction with those patients and those people. What to me, helping make a difference, helping support them and make changes in their life. The pre-grant award time commitment is a lot. If you've never worked on a grant, you get the funding, but you don't actually get it until it hits, right? So we were awarded our grant in September of 2022, but the money wasn't going to hit till 2023. Well, a program doesn't just create itself. So there was a lot of time put in without pay, you know, to create everything, to make sure it could be up and running by the time that we need it. And that's a big step. So that's something to consider when you're ever looking for funding, to negotiate that, because you again know what value it's bringing to the project, right? So negotiate that time. That's one of the lessons. I negotiate that time, because if we had waited till the money hit to then be planning for it, we wouldn't have even gotten that program started until June. And then there was no way we were probably hitting 50 people, right? So I had to be willing to put that time. And I was, because obviously I wanted to do it and I wanted to just bring it and create it. So for me, it was a passion project. It was a love. I was like, if I don't get anything from it, I just want to do it, you know, and see how it works. So it's a lot of time commitment, but it's worth it. I will tell you, it's really worth it. And learning to control, which is really hard. I'm type A and very controlling. So it's really taught me to not only ask for help, but then actually allow help to happen. Because you might ask for it, and that's great. We'll say, yeah, I'll help you. But then you have to like let go of control and let them help, right? Because I can't be everywhere at once. I can't do it. And it's just not feasibly possible, right? So it's really about creating that team with you, making sure that you're supported and trusting them they can do it too. So self-reported outcomes, this is like my favorite thing. This is what, like, again, I love the patients, I love the clients. This is it to me. This was the Stanley Cup to me in my regard. So we had a gentleman, Ken, and he sent me this email and he said, just as an FYI, I'm attaching something that you might like, which was like this whole body composition packet that he had researched and found. So I'll tell you why I'm excited about this. I did a body composition assessment 2 years ago, but I couldn't make much sense of it. So what did he do? He did his own research because we educated him on how to find information, credible information, what to be looking for when you're trying to find credible information. And that really gets down to business, right? Consumers are the ones who fuel the market, right? So consumer education is so important. So that's one of the things that we told our participants is you're the consumer just in medicine, right? You're the consumer, but just at the wellness facility. So you have the right to still be able to know how to find credible information and make sure that like we're actually telling you legitimate things too. You should be able to go and find what I said and be able to go and fact check. 100%, you should be able to. If I'm a professional, you definitely should be able to, right? So that really geeked me out that he like did that research because that was just inspired by the APEX program. I did my own research and came across this attached document. They attached it. I planned to do another assessment after I dropped. So he had no intentions of necessarily losing weight from the program, but he noticed physical changes by coming. He started using our facility, not only using it outside of the time, but then he joined. And that's just really cool. And I see him at least twice a week. And that's just when I happen to be there and see him in person, right? And then this one made me cry. So this is a really nice letter. She privately sent letters to both Samantha and I. It's really, really nice. But she just said, like, thank you so much for putting a worthwhile, educational, and all-encompassing program together. That she benefited greatly from the program, and it helped kickstart her exercise program, which she had gotten away from the pandemic. This lady was at the gym every day for like 3 hours. And she just leisurely ride the bike, reading a book. She'd come to our classes, but she would just sit, and that was just her thing to do. And she's retired, so it gave her something to do, but she was able to get back to it. She was really adventurous, tried a lot of different classes, which was great, and went to some of our other facilities. And she just shares like the benefit of the educational program, right? She just goes into more detail of what our program actually was. And it was just a really awesome letter. I will take that over like data numbers all day long, personally too. So the next steps for the program. So we're gonna finish it. It's almost done. All of the funding runs out at the end of December. And we're in post-assessments right now. So our wonderful exercise science staff are doing those post-assessments, and that's great. We're going to do post-interviews, so that first group is going to be 3 months out of the program. The second group is going to be 1 month out of the program, so we can also compare and contrast how their adherence has been. And then we'll have final reports to send to our funders. Sustainability is the next thing that we're really focusing on and working on. Now, how do we make it, when the money runs out, how do we keep it going, right? So program continuation, really considering how we progress the program versus just repeating, right? Do you just keep doing 14-week programs and hoping that it just, people have the same results? Or do we find a way to progress it, maybe make it a little smaller, but then progress it and continue to be providing? Budget, how's it going to be funded? Still working on those things. And then integration into existing programs and opportunities. So that's a big piece, I think, is where we're going to help find some budget calming too, is then participating with other entities within us, so we can get an hour here, an hour there, and figure out. Lessons learned, push for your passion. If the door's closed, usually I'm trying to peek in it and listening to see if there's anyone actually in there, and I'm probably build a team. You can't do things on your own, so build a team, people you trust, people that are passionate about things, and also realize that if someone is passionate about something, how can you support their ideas too? Like if they're supporting yours, then how is maybe the next project supporting theirs? Right? Because then you have that cyclical pattern and everybody's doing something they really enjoy and they're passionate about, and we're always going to put more energy into something like that. Be open to change. Don't be scared of change. Things are going to have to change, evolve, develop, and that's okay. It's actually really good. And then have patience and just remember your overall goals. So like when you have those hard times, remember like why you started, why you go back to that why for you, because that's why you put all the blood, sweat, and tears into it, right? And celebrate those little wins. So just a summary, after this, we are going to present our actual findings in a webinar, and then more than likely going to do an entire series of webinars starting 2024 of kind of determine a problem so you can create a program, kind of how to create a program, give you a little template for that, how to find a grant if you're interested in finding a grant, and then how to write different things. Finding them is an animal, but then writing them and understanding how to write them and what you're looking for is also a different thing. So, and then we're actually attending ACSM IDEA in Chicago in February. It's funded by the grant too. So to continue those ideas, right, and continue those opportunities. So networking is a big way to also find funding. Any questions?
Are you going to ACSM IDEA to present exactly this?
No.
Or the results of?
So I missed the deadline for us to present, which is a bummer, but I've actually been able to reach out to ACSM and we're gonna volunteer and be at all the sessions and different things like that. So I found a way for us to be attached to it and then hopefully continue stuff. So, and then you're welcome to scan this if you'd like to. That'll take you to my LinkedIn. And it has all my information on there and easy to find. So if you're interested, you can find me there. And I can connect you to Sam too. She's got lots of wonderful ideas and she's much more business savvy than I am. So any questions?
I know that right now you're looking into finding the next budget revenue stream to allow you to continue with this program. Let's say you don't find, you can't get the grant again. What's going to happen to the program?
So more than likely, one of two things. This is what, because I'm a worst case scenario person, so I've already like slept on this and thought about it. So more than likely, one of two things. My position, I'm lucky enough that I'm hourly, so I can donate some time to a program. So if we make this once a month, we can at least do some education. We can kind of continue and foster that relationship. I more than likely will put time into contacting people and staying in touch with them on my own choice, on my own dime. That's fine with me because their progress. And anyone who knows me knows I do that. So that just is what it is. Even my boss knows that. So more than likely it would look like that. It would look like some sort of kind of a series that continues, that just kind of never ends, that's always hitting something arthritis based. So whether we partner with a nutritionist and we have them focus on talking about nutrition in different ways, and as we continue to get feedback from people who have arthritis, that our new topics will come, right? So it'll have a little less education to it, it'll be a little less concentrated, but it hopefully adds that social aspect a little bit more too, that they can kind of create their own social pocket and really lean on each other too. If we also don't find funding and that doesn't work, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I'd probably run it regardless and just run it with no pay for me, because that's just again who I am. When we already have all the bulk of the education already created, right? Like we have the template already created, so now it's just really a time. I'm investing my own time to provide the information. So it more than likely looks like some sort of membership. So if they join as a member, it'll be open to our members as a program that would be free potentially. And then at that point, I'm not necessarily getting paid. If our budget adjusts and they see our numbers doing really well, potentially I do get paid at some point in time. Or you can really run it as a small based fee. You know, if you ran it for $10, right? And it ran once a month or something like that. People are willing to invest in their health because we're attached to a hospital, even though we're our own identity kind of within and next to the hospital, people can't actually use their HSA. So because of the way the card is ran, so that is another that you could do something.
Would you still keep it a 14-week program?
If I do it where I just choose to not get paid, yes, because I also want that data to keep pushing the fact that like this concept works, right? If we simplify it and make it a once a month thing, it will more than likely just become a survey thing. So people will still answer questions, still give us feedback, but it just won't be as intense. Wouldn't have like pre and post testing, any of that stuff.
Other than the underwater aquatic activities, what types of activities do you have the participants doing, like physical?
Yeah, great question. So what I did was I took our main group exercise schedule, which has a lot of options, right? Most facilities do. And I highlighted specifically, I only pulled out the ones that are gentle and really built to modify for any type of illness, issue, things like that, right? So yoga and the specific instructors I know that are really strong. We have what's it called, Life Fit. It's an older adult geared class. So they do weights, they do cardio, they do all the things, but again, prepared to modify towards whatever someone needs. We also have a free community program called Right Fit, that happens twice a week, so I included that within it. And then I looked into what we could add. So I have a yoga instructor that was willing to do chair yoga. So she had the opportunity, we didn't chair yoga, but if someone wanted to get on, they could. They didn't have to. We're now expanding our group exercise schedule to include Zumba Gold and other things because we're just seeing the desire more and more for things that are just less intimidating and willing to modify it. Bar's been really popular. Pilates has been really popular. I run our reformer program. So I'm super big on that, and I actually let everybody participate if they were interested in doing reformer. I let them do it with me for free because they were already participating in my grant program. So for me, I just ran that, so I'm concerned about it. But
So you didn't specifically work with like a biomechanist or a exercise mechanist to do specific torque producing exercises, things like that.
yes and no. So we have exercise specialists. So all of our fitness staff are all degrees. So they understand movement and things like that. My background, I'm an athletic trainer as well as exercise science. So I very much hone in with all of my group exercise instructors, safe movement. I give them different cues a lot and things like that. And one of the big things that I've done basically every patient or member that is encouraging them to be their own voice and be willing to move, but also be willing to say, like, I need an adjustment. Like, you don't be scared to say, hey, that hurts and I want to keep going, but I just want to do something different so I'm not in pain. Get them to really advocate for themselves is huge because an instructor doesn't necessarily know something's going on unless you tell them. So I always tell people to go in and pop in a little bit earlier before class, just say like, hey, just so you know, I have back pain. If you've seen me not doing something, I'd love a modification, but just no, I'm not ignoring what you're telling us to do. I just feel like not confident. Because it's a confidence, not even that they can't do it necessarily, it's they don't trust their body to be able to do it. Okay. Well, thank you so much. That was a great question. I would love to work with a kinesiologist more and do more things. That's just like my really nerdy side though. Be really interesting. I can write a grant just about anything, so trust me. Yeah, I'm a writer, write that grant. Don't you worry. But thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.